Okay, so what we want to do in this demo is how to set up a site-to-site VPN between the on-premises and the AWS cloud. So we want to quickly look at whiteboard that will clearly help us see what we want to do. Alright, so you probably don't know what a VPN is, or you already know what a VPN is. So a VPN is basically a technology that allows companies to connect multiple remote offices, or it could be remote mobile workers, to the company's corporate network resources, probably in their head office. So if a company have multiple branch offices and they want to connect these offices together, where staffs in different locations, different branches will be accessing the server that is in the corporate head office in order to do their day-to-day job. In that case, the network admin will have to set up a site-to-site VPN or set up a VPN in their router or firewall, whatever edge device they have that supports VPN. So that's what this technology is used for. Why VPN is because it ensures a highly encrypted connection where the company's corporate data will not be exposed to the public internet. Two ways of doing this VPN. We have site-to-site VPN and we have remote access VPN. So for the site-to-site, we use it to connect local area network to another local area network, and that is like office settings. So it means you have an office somewhere and you have your IT resources in that office, and you have another office somewhere, and then you use a VPN to connect these two locations over the internet. And that's what we mean by site-to-site or LAN to LAN. But then when we want to connect our employees that are seated in their homes with their official laptops so that they could be working from home, remote work, which has become a norm in today's world, we need to set up what is called remote access VPN on our edge device. And so this remote access sometimes could be referred to as SSL VPN, which is a secure socket. It uses secure socket for encryption. It's also referred sometimes as web VPN. So the remote access connects individual employees that are in different parts of the world to the company's corporate network resources. And so this is the type of VPN that we want to use to connect our on-premises data center to the AWS over the public internet. So what we have is this. So we have our head office, and in the head office down here we have switch, and you could see that in this switch a couple of devices are connected, which represent the employees that we have in this location, right? And so these employees need certain application to do their day-to-day job, and this application is not found here because within the on-prem we don't have any server. And so all the way to AWS we have our servers over there. So the only thing we have here are networking equipment like switches, wireless access points for some laptops that could be connecting to wireless, right? And desktops, etc., connected to the switch. The switch connects to a gateway. So here we have a router, and then we have reached out to an ISP. It doesn't really matter which ISP you are using, and so the ISP has allocated to us a public IP address, right? So this is the sample public IP 250.5.10. That's not really what ISP gave us. We're just using it as an example in this tutorial. And so everything has to be configured on the edge router. And so this router here is using one of its ports to connect to the ISP. And this port actually is the WAN side because it's facing the internet, and it uses another port to connect to the corporate network, and this will be the LAN side course is connecting to the corporate LAN. All right, so on the AWS already have done the due diligence, and so the AWS data centers already have a high-speed internet connection. Whatever ISP they want, they already have an ISP that connects all their data centers to the internet. And so in the AWS, we already have created an account there. We have a region, and within the region, we have a VPC, which is a virtual private cloud. And then we have our subnet. We have these things created within one or multiple availability zones. And then we have our servers. So the servers we have in the AWS, our EC2 instances, these are virtual servers, Elastic Compute Cloud, virtual servers in the AWS. And we are running business applications on this server. And we want the users, the employees at the on-prem to be able to access the application running on the EC2 instances in the AWS in order to do their work. So in that case, we'll be passing through the public internet, which is not really ideal, but then we want to provide some protection for our corporate data by setting up a site-to-site VPN between the on-prem and the AWS. And so that's what this tutorial is all about. So if the concept is understood, we're going to jump in to the AWS. Now, the first thing we'll configure is customer gateway. So I'll come back to this very soon. So let's get into the AWS dashboard. So I'm already in North Virginia, and that is my region, and we'll set for a VPC. Our resources that we create within a region, all of them must be under a VPC, which is virtual private cloud. By default, once you get to a region, AWS creates a VPC for you, but you also have a way of creating a custom VPC for yourself. So if I type VPC on the search, VPC, you're going to see VPC isolated cloud resources. So I'm going to crack it open. I'm already there, but I just want to show you how I was able to get there. Sorry, have to actually log in again. All right, so log in to the AWS management console, and yes, so once you type VPC in the search, it takes us to our VPC. I created a VPC already. I deleted it. I want to use the default VPC, but you can also create a custom VPC for this. And so if you go to under virtual private cloud, your VPCs, you're going to see that I have a VPC here, a courtesy, the one created for me by AWS. And so under this VPC, we are going to see our subnet, our route table, our internet gateway, everything that we ever need. And so in this particular region, if I do create an EC2 instance, it's going to take IP address for the default subnet that AWS has created for us. So what we want to quickly create is a site-to-site VPN between the AWS cloud and then our on-prem. All right, so this site-to-site VPN is located at the bottom left of the AWS dashboard. So I'm going to scroll down, and here you see virtual private network VPN. So first thing, we'll create a customer gateway, then we'll create a virtual private gateway, and then we'll go ahead and set up the site-to-site VPN connection. 3 easy steps, and we are done. So let's create a customer gateway. Now I already have a customer gateway, but I'm going to create a new one. Customer gateway is about the on-premises, what we have at the on-prem. I think I should just leave this one and create a new one. And so what do we mean by customer gateway? Once again, if I go to the dashboard, you see here that customer gateway is actually about the resources we have on-prem. So this is on-prem, at the on-premises, data center, head office. We have a router, and this router has a public IP address. which is allocated to us by the ISP 255.10, and that's actually what we'll be using to set up the customer gateway. So the AWS wants to see what is the IP address we are using on the WAN interface of the edge device that we have in the on-premises. And that's what the customer gateway config is all about here. So I'm going to create a customer gateway. Now that IP address already is used here in 255.10. So I'm going to use something else so that it will allow me to create the second one and just give it a name. So in this case, I will name it Customer Gateway 02, okay, CGW02, and scroll down, and here it's going to give us a default BGP ASN and two couple of ways of connecting your on-prem data center to AWS. You could do it using BGP, could also do it using static routes. All right, so here it says we should specify the IP address for our customer gateway, and that is the external interface of the edge device we are using in the on-premises, whichever device you are using, Sophos, Cisco, etc. The public IP address allocated to you that you have configured on the public interface of that device is what you need to enter here. So in this case, I'll just make up an IP address 200.50.5.11. All right. So certificate ARN, we don't need that. So just leave it on the default. And if you like, if you know the host name of the device, the edge device you have in the on-premises, you can put the host name here. So I'll just say router 1. All right. That's what there is to configure about customer gateway. Click on create customer gateway at the bottom, and within few seconds the gateway will be created. All right, so let us just refresh the screen and see if it's done creating the gateway. I think is available now. So we named it CGW02, which is customer gateway 02. All right, and you can see state is available. Next thing to configure is the virtual gateway. So the customer gateway is about the on-premises, and the virtual private gateway is about the AWS side of the configuration. So let's create a private virtual gateway. You click on virtual private gateway and we click on create. We'll give it a name once again. In this case, I'll name it virtual private gateway 02. All right. Let's go with the Amazon default ASN. Also, if you have your custom ASN, you could also select it. Autonomous system number is what is attached to your BGP. If you know BGP, if you're coming from networking background, you know that BGP border gateway protocol is a routing protocol. It's actually an EGP exterior gateway routing protocol. Okay, so it makes use of what is called autonomous system number. There are private and there are also public ASN. All right, so we use the Amazon default ASN, and once we have given the private virtual private gateway name, we'll just click on create. Most of the configurations that is supposed to be entered here in terms of your IKE phase 1, IKE phase 2, and etc will be automated for us by AWS. That is actually when we are setting up the site-to-site connection part of the VPN. So the customer gateway has to do with our default gateway, our edge device on the on-premises, while the virtual private gateway will have to do with our edge device in the AWS. Because of course in the AWS there should be a gateway, a router at the back end, but Amazon is going to take care of most of the configuration. So we are done with creating the virtual private gateway, and it's now time to do the last step of this configuration, which is creating a site-to-site VPN connection between the AWS cloud and then the corporate head office. So select site-to-site VPN, and we click on create VPN connection. All right, so what do we name this? So we can name it AWS to head office. Okay, so AWS or head office is the name we'll give it, and then we scroll down and we'll say, okay, we want to use virtual private gateway, which will be our default gateway in the AWS. You notice the previous step, we created a virtual private gateway. We'll drop down and we'll see the one we created. I actually have two, but the one I just created is VPG02, which is virtual private gateway 02. And that will be the default gateway on the AWS side. And on the customer side, we just created a customer gateway which must match whatever public IP address that we have on the WAN interface of our on-premises device, be it a firewall or a router. We drop down, we select what we just created, which is CGW02. And here we can now decide which option we want to use to connect to AWS. Option 1, we can use dynamic routing protocol. Here it requires BGP. Option 2, we could set up a static route between the on-prem and here. So if I use static route, then I will have to specify the prefix. So already you know how to configure static routes. We'll do IP route, that is from Cisco point of view. We'll put the destination network, we'll put the subnet mask of the destination, and then a default gateway. So let me go with BGP. Here you need to specify what addresses are being used in your on-premises local area network. Okay, so here says the customer gateway, which is the on-premises side. What is the network that is allowed to communicate to the AWS? So what is asking us is, in the on-premises, you already should have your networking guy. If you are not a network person, should have probably have VLANs. But the point is that you should have a particular subnet that you have used to address the need of IP addresses in your network. So we need to specify this network, which is on the customer gateway side, and tell AWS that this is the network we want the AWS to be able to access. All right, so in this case, we also specify the AWS side. So in the AWS side, we are using 172.31.0.0/16. All right, and let's assume that in the on-premises data center we are using 192.168.2.0. So that's what we need to specify now. And so for the on-premises, if you don't really know what subnet is being used to address the need of IP addresses, you could leave it on the default, which means that everything on-prem will be allowed to access the AWS. So 0.0.0.0/0, meaning everything is allowed from the on-premises side. And on the AWS side, if you don't know what is being used, in my own case, I'm using 172.31.0.0/16. I could also put it on anything. So anything on the on-prem is allowed to access anything on the AWS. That might be too much broad access. You might want to tighten up these things by specifying the actual subnet that should be allowed. All right, so we scroll down, and that's probably it. So these are the tunnel 1, tunnel 2. Two tunnels will actually be created for us, just for the sake of high availability, fault tolerance. So you might want to look at what is configured on those tunnels. All right, well, that's actually what we need. And so all the pre-share key, all those stuff, IQFACE 1, IQFACE 2, interest in traffic, and even BGP, everything will be automated, everything will be configured for us. So just click on create VPN connection and wait for a couple of maybe 5 to 7 minutes, depending on the speed of your internet connection. And these guys should finish the creation of the site-to-site VPN. So let's just refresh the screen. All right, and if I scroll down here, so you see that it's still pending. All right, so pending state. So let's wait. While we wait, you can actually click on the download configuration here, and AWS will put together the steps that we need to use to set up our on-premises device. Depending on the vendor equipment we are using, we have so many vendors supported here: Barracuda, Cisco, WatchGuard, Fortinet, so forth, etc. So they want the configuration that they have done from the AWS side to be exactly the same with what you do on your on-premises router or firewall that is initiating this connection to AWS. So if you drop down here, you are going to see a whole lot of vendor supported vendor equipment, Checkpoint, firewalls, Cisco systems, F5, Fortinet, there is WatchGuard, there is Sophos, Juniper Networks, MikroTik, Palo Alto, a whole lot of vendor equipment supported here. So if you are using Cisco equipment on premises and Cisco router or Cisco firewall is being used to connect your company to the AWS, in that case you select Cisco systems, and you have to specify which class or platform of Cisco equipment are you using. Is it the Cisco firewall, which is called ASA, or is it the Cisco router, or is it Cisco ASR router? So whichever Cisco device. So in my own case, I want to select the integrated services router, ISR Cisco routers. And once that is selected, you're going to click on download. Now what this does is to download a config file. So you see in my download, I have a VPN text file, and this is awesome. AWS put together steps that you need to use to set up the on-premises side of your equipment. And so we'll have our VPN connection ID here that will be really needed when we are setting up the on-premises side. So there are 4 steps to setting up the on-premises router. I'm assuming that you are using Cisco router as well. We have step 1, which is to configure our IKE phase 1, that is Internet Key Exchange. And all of this is just a breakdown explanation. So under this step 1, if you scroll down this text file, this is what you are going to configure in your Cisco router. The command actually starts from here. So you're going to enable VPN first off by doing crypto ISACAM policy, and you use a policy number of 200. It could be any number in case 200 is already in use for another VPN in your on-premises device. Okay, so you have to specify your encryption protocol, your authentication, your group, your lifetime, the hashing. Okay, so this must be exactly what we are seeing here, because that will be what is configured in the AWS side. And so if the configuration do not match both sides, you are going to have issues. All right, so these are the commands, and those texts you see here that start with exclamation mark, these are just comments. All right, so once you see any exclamation mark, just jump it. It's just a comment describing what you're about to do. And once we have typed the hashing, which is SHA, secure hash algorithm, we type exit. We're going to continue with crypto key ring. Okay, we create a key ring, we give it a name. In this case, it was named keyring VPN. And so we now put our VPN ID, which I highlighted at the top earlier on. Our local address will be the public IP of our router here, and then the key, which is the password that our router on-prem will be using to share with the private gateway in the AWS side. And this is the public IP address on the AWS side that our own router's public IP address will be communicating to, and then we'll specify the actual key that they'll be using to talk to each other. So we exit, and so once again, exclamation mark, that means it's just a comment. Then we'll continue from here. We'll continue like this all the way to the bottom. of this file, where you can see that this is the end of IKE phase 1. All right, and so this is step 2, where we configure IKE phase 2, where that has to do with IPsec, and all these exclamations are just comments. And so the actual configuration will start from crypto IPsec transform set. So we'll create our transform set. In this case, the transform set is called what? IPsec prop. Okay, so IPsec prop, and then that follows with our VPN ID, and we'll specify our encryption is AES 128, and our hashing is SHA HMARC. Okay, the mode of the VPN, of course, is going to be a tunnel mode, and then we exit. Okay, that is the IKE phase 2. And so we create an IPsec profile. All right, so from all these exclamation mark are just comments. And so the next step is to create IPsec profile, and we'll give the profile a name, and we go ahead and set our perfect forward secrecy, which is using DH group 2, and then security association lifetime 3600 seconds, which is about 1 hour. Then set our transform set to whatever we have configured it, and these are just step by step that we use and push this configuration into the Cisco device. So we'll set our IPsec diff bit to clear, and these are just comments. And then you continue like this. This is a command: crypto ISACAM keep alive threshold is 10. It retries every 10 seconds. And crypto IPsec security association replay window size is 128. And this is pretty much straightforward. Just leave out the exclamation marks. Those are just comments. Go ahead and put these commands in your Cisco router that is facing the internet. So create a tunnel mode, an interface tunnel 0. In this case, it's tunnel 1. Set all these parameters. We exit. And this is the BGP configuration side on your Cisco device in the AWS. Okay, so we enable BGP using router BGP followed by our ASN autonomous system number, and this is the configuration, and we're advertising any network 0.0.0.0, which matches what we configured on the AWS side. We are allowing 0.0.0.0/0 on the AWS to access 0.0.0/0. All right, so that's actually the configuration, but there is another tunnel that will be created. We see it here, IPsec tunnel 2. So AWS is using 2 tunnels, tunnel 1, tunnel 2. And we also need to create 2 tunnels in our on-premises. In case one tunnel is down, the other tunnel should be available. That's actually a high availability strategy. All right, so go ahead if you are using Cisco. If you are not using Cisco, make sure that you look out for the vendor that you are using in the AWS, and just hit on download to download the configuration file. Most vendors are supported here, and once that is done on the on-premises side, then you are good to go, and you should be able to access the servers that you have on the AWS. I mean, talking about your users on the on-premises, should be able to access all your resources over the public internet in a very much secure way using site-to-site VPN. And that's actually what we want to achieve in this demo. I hope you have benefited. Thank you so very much for watching.